Good morning, everybody. Another episode of the Keep Going podcast, Athletes Shining a Light on Mental Health. I got national champion Darin Monroe from Rock Valley College in the building. Darin, what's going on?
What's up, Pat? How are you?
I'm very blessed, man. Happy to be here. I'm sitting at Athletes HQ out here in Machesney Park, and it looks like you're in the basement office, huh?
I am. Yeah, beautiful Sunday morning where I get to drink my coffee and plan my week.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you fitting us in. Obviously, this is long overdue. We had your guy DJ Johnson on a couple weeks ago, so let's start there. Talk about DJ because we don't go there really quickly. We might not get to him. So talk about DJ for me.
Yeah, DJ came into, my life and my program probably at the most opportune time. They were a little bit oil and water, but we mix so well. I was bad cop, he was good cop, in a literal sense, and DJ just filled all the things that I needed him to be. My strengths were maybe his weaknesses and my weaknesses were his strengths. And, when you look at the success that we had as a program, um, we would have never reached the heights that we are today, had we not been together.
That's a beautiful thing. And he mentioned very similar about you. It's like that combination of good cop, bad cop, but the accountability piece and the love that you showed for those girls and, the culture that you guys created winning softball games and, big time futures in life. And I guess my next question would be, this is a mental health podcast. So why did you feel like this was a good mix for you? Like, why did you want to come spend your Sunday morning with us?
Obviously, this was an area at the beginning of my career you don't think a lot about. And then obviously events happen, where, a former player of mine, committed suicide. And it really changed my thought process and honestly the way I coach. I've softened a lot probably over the years, and you can ask any former player that comes back and tells me that. But I think this is a growing thing. It's not just in athletics, it's also in coaching. The social media world is running rampant, and you're seeing a lot of coaches get out of it because of their own mental health well-being there too, and it's just growing. And for me, losing Summer just probably changed the way I view things, and trying to do a better job of understanding that area so that I can be better. We put these kids through a lot. There's a lot of stressful things going on. They got to go to class. For some of them, they got to find ways to have jobs, and they've got to go to practice and try to compete at a high level and do all those things, and then also still have a social life. They need somebody that they can lean on.
No, 100%. And it's comforting knowing that Rock Valley, and this is across a lot of sports over there, like has set that standard, has set that expectation. But, it really comes down to discipline, love, discipline one, love twice as hard. What I would say, since obviously the tragedy we touched on it in DJ's episode, what have you done different with your athletes to make sure they're in a good headspace?
No, I think first and foremost, what we've done is we've carried on Summer's legacy, and this is multifaceted. Number one, I want her to be remembered. That's first and foremost because of what she did in our program, and I want people to remember the happy days of what she was. I mean, she was an All-American, she was a national tournament offensive MVP, and all those things on that regard. But it also, the way she represented our program, the thing about Summer that anybody that knew her, Summer was tough. Summer was gritty. And that's, I think, why it turned our worlds upside down, because it came out of nowhere for us, but then
Right.
you look back at the fact and you think there was warning signs that we just didn't see it because we knew the Summer that was tough. I mean, she was one of the toughest kids I've ever coached. And if you'd have told me that, her life would have ended the way it was, I would have never believed it. But it just shows you, even those people that have tough exteriors are sometimes going through things that you need to obviously pay attention to. And for us, that number 7, it's obviously to honor Summer. It's to honor a player in our program who we feel like best represents it. But it gives me an opportunity to remind myself that we need to have that mental health discussion every fall. That get in front of my team and I get to talk about Summer and what she meant to me personally and what she meant to the program, but also open up that door for my kids to understand that, listen, I'm tough and I don't apologize for being tough. I have high standards here, but I also care about you, and
Yeah.
if you're going through things, you can come to me, you can come to our other assistant coaches and reiterate the fact that as a team, this is also a safe zone. That if you've got teammates that are going through things, what are some ways that we can cope through it and handle it? And I think that opening those conversations, some kids trust it, some kids don't. Some feel most that they can come to me. Some are most to right now Miranda, or that was Vivi at the time, or DJ at the time.
Right.
But just to make sure that they all know that between one of our staff, they've got people that care about them, and we're safe. We're a safe place for them to come to, so that we can figure out how to make it better.
Yeah, that's beautifully spoken. I always go back to when I was at Rock Valley, 22 right out of college, and didn't have a lot of experience in this field by any means. And I don't think myself and Chad Heron at the time did anything about mental health when I was there. So for coaches that are listening and for players that are listening today, run that minute clip back and think about ways that you can initiate some of this stuff and have these conversations. Cause it's not one of those things, coach, where like you just go in the room and say, hey, we're going to talk about this today.
No.
This conversation is earned out of the love that you show for your players. And that starts way before they're on your campus, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's the conversation that I have with every recruit that comes in here. I think
Yeah.
that there's two types of coaches, and honestly, I think at the beginning of my career, I was unfortunately the latter. There was transactional type and what you can do for me and winning and all these things, and over the last 5 to 7 years, I've tried to do a better job of being relational, and understand my players. And when people say that I've softened as a coach, it's because I have now the relationship and the trust from them that I don't have to be a yeller and screamer every day. They understand, and they're willing to run through that wall with the expectation, and the program's at a high level. They understand what the expectation of the program is. And I think that all starts in recruitment. These
Right.
players are choosing to play for me. They are making that decision because of the relationship that we've had since they were 16 years old to come here and play here. And I think that, those coaches have those open conversations with your players about who you are, especially in the recruiting process. And I know I talk about that because of the nature of your job,
Of course.
but for us, it's not just about stockpiling talent. It's about stockpiling people that we want to be around each and every day. And I think that since we've changed that focus a little bit, the culture of our program has just continued to grow.
It's beautiful. It's not just X's and O's, W's and L's. It's setting kids up for future success. And we'll talk about Ash a little bit, but I'm marrying one of them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm proud that I can say that and that she was a Rock Valley alum and she went on and is doing the stuff that she's doing now. And you and DJ and the whole staff and those teammates were a huge part of that. So I'm very grateful for that and her upbringing there. I do want to go back to what you said earlier about the coaching side now. We talked about the playing side, the coaching side. You're an AD, right? You're in a lot of these higher up meetings, but you go out there and do the same stuff coaches do. How do you make sure your mental health is good to have these conversations and be right for your girls?
It's tough. I'll tell you that for me, it's about experience in handling difficult situations. And I think I lost more sleep over coaching the beginning of my career than I do now. Honestly, for me, when I became an athletic director, I feel like I also became a better coach because I realized what real stress is. Where you're in meetings and you're having to make decisions all the time and doing those things, that's far greater stress than worrying about we had a bad practice that day, and those type of things. But I'll tell you that look at the world around you. Coaches are getting out of this business. And why are they getting out of this business? Because you can have winning seasons and lose your job now at high levels.
Yep.
Because now with the whole NIL, and that's great for student athletes, but it's now even those mid-major coaches that go and find that diamond in the rough, they have a breakout freshman year, they leave. Well, nobody remembers that. They just remember what happened to the program after they left and no longer won, and now coach.
Exactly.
And I think in a lot of ways that coaching is not coaching. You're trying to. It's a professional it's a professional transactional mindset, especially at the higher levels. And, the stress to win, the stress that social media provides, that players can go on social media and they can say things about coaches, but coaches
Yeah.
can't respond.
Nope.
And usually the way it is that there's this side and there's this side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Amen.
And I think that's tough, because coaches got to stay professional and they got to stay the high road. And and a lot of coaches are getting out of this business because they don't make enough money to deal with the stress. It's
No.
easier just to go get that 8 to 5 job that you can, when you leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you click it off.
Yep.
And most coaches, that pressure to win is intrinsic, especially at Rock Valley. Like there's an expectation that we have set, but our coaches make their own expectations. They know that I support them. They know that there's an expectation in the way our athletes conduct themselves, and academically and socially, and on obviously the playing surfaces. But at the end of the day, they're the leaders of the program.
Yeah. No, and I think it starts at the top, and once again, you set those expectations and work your way down. No, that was great. I think that's why I got out of college coaching. Like, thank you for hiring me twice. I'm forever grateful for that. And I would probably come back a third time if I could. That job changed my life, honestly. But there was a time and place where that didn't work anymore for my mental health. It didn't work anymore for my paycheck, honestly, which has a lot to do with financial freedom and being able to make the strides you want to make.
Correct.
Talk about this, though. So obviously the national championships, everybody knows, like Rock Valley softball, you walk into Athletes HQ and you'll see something Rock Valley somewhere. I promise you. Talk about your first national championship and talk about that feeling, because DJ talked on it a bunch, so that was his favorite feeling. Talk about that first national championship.
I think when I talk about the first year, it's we go to a national tournament, we're a 3 seed. The returning national champion Herkimer had, I think, 80% of their roster coming back, and in the year before it, they run ruled us in the semifinal game. And we went into it knowing that we want to compete, we want to put ourselves in a position to get to a national championship. Did I think that we were going to win it? No. And then the semifinal comes, and this lefty pitcher who just went into our Rock Valley College Hall of Fame named Amanda Blankenship.
Yep, saw it. Congratulations, Amanda. Yep.
Yeah, she dealt, and we upset them in game number 1. But then obviously as a coach, you're thinking, all right, we just awoke the beast.
Here we go.
Coming back
Yep.
into the national championship, and Amanda does it again. I remember that feeling, and for me, it's like there's no greater feeling as a coach. And it doesn't matter if it was the first one or the 8th one, or it's a region championship or any of that, that when that final out is recorded, that opportunity to just sit on your bucket and watch a bunch of people that you care a lot about celebrate something, because all those things that we did throughout the year comes to fruition in that one moment. And even if they're thinking that you're crazy when you're talking about this in September, and why is he pushing me to this limit in October, and then they get that feeling and they no longer question the madness that you put them through at times.
Yes.
And they understand at that point why you did it, and they're appreciative to why you did that, because that feeling. But for me, it's that opportunity to see those kids celebrate. It's never going to be about me. It never gets old. And I remember even our 8th one, when we won it in Rochester, I had my daughter in the bucket next to me. And the moment that final out was recorded, I pulled my daughter to the side and I just told her to watch the center of the field, because that's what it's about. You put time and effort into this, and then to see your hard work pay off is incredible.
Yeah, man. I'm getting emotional thinking about that. I did the same thing with DJ's episode. Like that feeling of watching your athletes when that light bulb goes off, when they succeed and they get to the top of the mountain. It's an incredible feeling. And I think that's why we have a lot of players and coaches that listen to this podcast. We're not getting on you because we're picking on you.
No.
We're getting on you because we love you and we want to see you get to what you said you wanted to get to. Mm-hmm. And if I don't hold you to that standard, I'm failing myself and you as well. So there's a fine line between pushing somebody up the wall and sending them out and, I don't know, being too light. You want to find that medium ground and say, hey, if we're setting these expectations, we're going to work every day. And sometimes you got to train a little bit dirty, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. You mentioned your daughter on the 8th one. And obviously I know your family very well. And it will always be intertwined in the Rockford area. Talk about your wife, talk about your family, and what it means to you, man.
Yeah, and number one, I wouldn't be able to do this for the longevity that I've done it without a supportive cast at home.
Yeah.
My thankfully my wife was a former college athlete. She was a basketball player at Luther College, and so she understands the nights and the weekends that are involved. And my family's been a part of it. And the one thing that I've tried to do a good job of is obviously trying to have a better work-life balance where I'm home earlier and I'm understanding those things, but also involving them. My daughter got to ride the buses to spring breaks. She's got to ride the
Amazing.
buses on the weekend. She's been our bat girl. Last year I brought my son, and he got that opportunity to go on the trip and get around those girls. And I'll tell you, as a parent, there is no greater influence on your kids than your athletes. And so many times, coaches, you look at all the faults sometimes that your athletes have, and you think about them, and then you see them with your kids, and you're like, it's just that reminder. This is how great of a profession that I have. In
Yeah.
what other profession does my daughter get 22 females that are highly motivated in all facets of life to look up to? And
Yeah.
I think, or my sons, and I just think that it's a great profession because of that, because your student athletes are incredible.
Yeah, man. It's built-in best friends and role models for those
Mhm.
kids, and they're gonna look back and they might not know it now, Darin, but they're gonna know
Mhm.
down the road how special this was, and that's amazing. I had to bring that up. I think the point I'm gonna get to is we're 20 minutes in, and I feel like we've been talking for like 30 seconds, which is a good feeling.
Mhm.
I gotta ask you your keep going moment, man. I know we talked about summer earlier and some stuff going on at Rock Valley. What's your keep going moment? Can you pinpoint it?
Summer would obviously be one of them, but I think handling the pandemic.
Yeah, talk about that.
Um, First and foremost, and Ashton was on this team at that time. Uh, we're in Florida. The news is hitting. Things are getting canceled, and having to look your team at the eyes and say, "Hey, by the way, all that work that you put in, all those things, your season's over." That was hard for me, and you know, I had a lot of reflecting during that time. For the first time in honestly my adult life, I had time at home. I had time, and it wasn't all bad, right? Like I had time to reflect, and I had time for myself, because in this profession, you're gone all the time. You're doing
Right.
things, you're working. It's what you do. And now like the world stopped, and as an athletic director, I'm handling all these things in the soft, but I'm trying to also keep the softball side. And I had a lot of thoughts. And is coaching still the direction that I'm looking to do?
Right.
And if it's not, I had Vivi at the time that I'm thinking this is a former player that could take over the program and do this. I could focus my efforts on the athletic directing side, but for me, it's like I just know that the coaching thing, I would miss the connection to the athletes that I would have daily, because as an athletic director, you get to see them in the hallway, you get to support them when they're in the game fields and do those things, but you don't really get that connection.
Right.
And that, if I feel like I'm a better athletic director because I'm still in the trenches. I still understand the struggles that my coaches have, and I think that honestly, the pandemic really challenged me in a lot of different ways. But I would say that was my keep it going moment.
Amazing, man. And I think there was a lot of soul searching for you during that time. Probably a lot of conversations, with your wife, with the family, with people that you trusted. And I think it's beautiful that you went back to it on the coaching side because of the kids.
Mhm.
Because I don't know, there's an expression. It's if it ain't about the money, it's about the money. And I think a lot of these coaches are in it for the glory and the money and what they can get out of it. It's beautiful to hear you say how many years later that it's still about the kids, man. And honestly, that's why you're so successful, I think, is the relationships you establish, honestly.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And there's also a reason I haven't left Rock Valley in 14 years.
Exactly.
For me, it's coaching's coaching. I get the opportunity to connect with individuals. I've never wanted to be on TV. I've never wanted it to be about myself. I've never longed for fame or fortune or any of those things. I want to be comfortable, and I want to do the thing that I'm passionate about. and I get that opportunity to do both sides of the equation at Rock Valley.
Yeah. No, amazing stuff, man. Well, I do want to go into rapid fire questions. I'll get you back to your Sunday. I did not give Darin a script, so we're going to go off the cuff here and just see what happens. So, if I remember correctly, Darin, yourself and your wife were both Division III athletes, correct?
Correct.
Give me your Division III athlete pitch. Like, why would you be a Division III athlete?
Um, for me at the time, it was having that opportunity to stay local, and I was from a small town, Northeast Iowa, and Luther was my hometown. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't change my experience for the world. As a Division III athlete, the one thing that I enjoyed is I had an opportunity to develop not just as an athlete, but the expectation in the Division III mindset is that you're an active member of the community.
Right.
You have other things that you're doing on top of just, the athletic portion of it. And, I will tell you, too many players out here get caught up in divisions. Go to your best fit. And that fit can be financial implications, location implications. Division is a part of the fit, major, all these things, right? Opportunity.
Right.
But go to your fit. Too many people are chasing the division. This is why the transfer portal is the way it is.
Yes.
So do your homework, give that Division III program or that junior college or NAI Division II program opportunity, because you never know where it's going to be. You never know where it's going to lead yourself. I talk about Annika Bartz a lot in my recruiting.
Shout her out. Yeah. Rockford legend, Annika Bartz. Go ahead.
Annika Bartz, what people don't understand, had a Division I scholarship to when her career at Rock Valley was complete.
I remember.
Annika Bartz turned that down to go to Rockford University, which is a building program at the time. And I think if anybody asked Annika, she made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because Annika went there, she turned around a program where it is now, it's now in a lot better place than it was. And, she had an opportunity to compete a couple years. She loved staying close to home, and now she's the head coach there. And so
Amazing.
at that time, if Annika was only chasing that Division I dream, she would have never even listened. But that just shows you that it's about your fit. And Rockford was Annie's best fit.
I agree. And it was the same for myself.
Correct.
I was the same way. And now we laugh about Annika now, but like we're sending our first player there this coming fall from Athletes HQ. And like I called Annika, and it's just people helping people in those relationships. Once again from those days. That was my first stint at Rock Valley when I met Annika when she was playing. It's crazy how that works. All right, let's stay on that course then, because I have to bring Ashton up because she's at home sleeping right now because she's a little bit under the weather. Your favorite story from that team, either about Ashton or any of those girls on that team, that national championship team?
So first, I got here's my favorite story, I guess, about Ashton. Okay,
Hit me.
and it wasn't Ashton may not even remember this, maybe she does, but we were in the spring of 2021, which would have been Ashton's sophomore year.
Yep.
Anybody that knows Ashton, and obviously I'll toot her horn. I mean, she was without a doubt the best pitcher in the country that year and the most dominating pitcher in the country that year. And we're towards the end of the year, and we got a big game against, I can't even remember who it was at this time, right? But Ashton had developed a head cold. And so our process at the time was you have to test, and if you're positive for COVID, you're out 10 days. Well, the 10-day window would have taken Ashton into our beginning of our postseason.
Right.
And so Ashton develops this head cold. We're warming up for game number one. Ashton's got to go get COVID tested. All of a sudden, we're beginning game number one, where we started our number two pitcher at the time. And here Ashton comes walking. My athletic trainer purposely didn't tell me that Ashton tested negative. And the relief that I had, thinking, okay, we're good with Ashton now for the next 10 days.
Oh my goodness.
Because imagine taking out that number. Now, that team was pretty dominant at the time. And I hope that we would have still been able to get to the parts that we were at. But just thinking of what that would have looked like without Ashton in the circle would have been a challenge, and my fondest memories of that team. And What I will always remember is the things that those kids had to be put through just to be able to get on the field and play.
Crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wearing masks. That fall, we had to practice in small little groups because of contact tracing and all those things, and they never wavered. I just think about that. It's like, had I been an athlete at the time, I would have probably said, "This is enough, enough. I'm going to move on.
Not for me. Not for me.
I'm going to
Yep.
move on with my life." Right? But they never wavered,
Yeah.
and because they never wavered, probably the most dominating tournament in NJCAA softball history. We outscored our opponents. What was it, 46-0?
It wasn't even close. Wasn't even close.
During the 4 games, and obviously we had not just Ashton, but our pitching staff at the time was
Loaded.
solid, and just the dominance that we went there for a 4-game series, and you win the national championship game. I think it was 16-0. That team, but they never wavered. They were just appreciative to be around each other at that time. We didn't have to worry about drama because they wanted to see each other and do those things. And I just feel like any opportunity that we had, it was just pure. It was just pure. I think
No.
that's why that group is so close. Still to this day is so close because they know the commitment that they made to the team, the program, to me, everything.
Yeah, I guess you get to see it here in a year from now. You get to see Bean and all those girls that were all in the wedding, at the wedding, of course, and that'll be a special moment. I'm looking forward to that. And I think that's why we all do this, right? For those kind of things. And Ashton is the head of softball at Athletes HQ now.
Mhm.
And when she speaks to our girls, she'll often bring up the story of Darin and DJ and all these guys and everybody there at the time put us through the ringer. And when we got to the national tournament, it was like, we've already worked harder than this. We've already put the work in. You left no doubt in your preparation. That's a beautiful thing. And she brings it up all the time. So be happy about that because that story lives on for sure.
And thank you for sharing that. That as you're going through this mental health podcast, right? Like that's the one thing. It's like in coaching, you have to be concerned with the mental health, but you also have to coach your kids hard.
Yep.
It's because life is also hard, and winning is also hard, and preparation is also hard. And I appreciate stories like that where it's like the aha moment that your former players they understand. Maybe not all of the madness that we put them through, but they understand why we did it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I had a hitting coach growing up, Steve Peterson, who I shout out all the time. And I tell Steve, and Steve tells a story about, hey, I can tell you the truth now, and you might hate me for a second, or I could lie to you now and you'll hate me forever, right? If I tell you the truth right now that you're not playing well and this is how we fix it, it might be uncomfortable, but I promise that might prolong your career. So I always
Yep.
took that to heart when he talked about that kind of stuff, telling people the truth.
Yep.
Third and final question. I know you've gone through it. You're still going through this with athletes. You have a student athlete that's struggling right now. Mental health is low. What would you tell them?
I think first and foremost, you have to understand your players. For some, they are overconfident in what their abilities are, and for those, sometimes you need to break them down a little bit, right?
Right.
But you can tell now. You just have to continue to give them positive reinforcement because you can tell in their verbiage that they're negative with themselves. They're negative about their BP session or their defensive session or whatever it is, and it's just continuing to give them positive feedback. Focus on the good at bats, not the bad ones. And if you're struggling to make contact, how about we celebrate when you finally do make contact? Because once you finally make the contact, now you can make more consistent contact. And it's doing those type of things. As a coach, it's tough, because you're trying to evaluate it all the way through. But I think that's where that relationship comes in, is you can tell when a kid's kind of going through it a little bit, and you just have to focus and know what buttons to push and when. And if you become more positive with them, hopefully they'll become more positive with themselves. I have a couple kids on my team right now that they they are so competitive that they can't handle their own failures. And
Right.
in the past, it was like we were failing because we weren't preparing well. Well, now there is some athletes out there that they put so much into this that they just need to learn how to handle being okay with you didn't get the hit, you didn't execute the pitch. Yes, mistakes happen, but I want you to be able to flush it and move forward, or it's just going to continue to prolong.
No doubt. And I see it a lot with my young kids. And I don't know. I guess I'm 30 now. Looking back at it, I don't know if it was always like this, but it probably was. I probably was the same little shit. I'll swear on the podcast. I don't really care. I probably was the guy throwing helmets and bats and stuff. My coaches could probably confirm that. Now I think it's kind of nipping it in the butt now at a young age and going, hey, this game is really hard. Like, this game is really hard. Baseball and softball, any sport, honestly.
Yep.
Flush it. Let's get someone to cope with it and go grind your ass off. That's it. And if you can do that, you'll play the game for a long time. Somebody will take you. High school, they'll give you a shot. College, they'll give you a shot. I'll go to war with 10, 15 grinders over good athletes that are prima donnas, honestly.
And you're 100% right. And I think that, our last 2 years that we've really focused on handling failure, because it's just a little bit different, and it's again, for me, they're meeting the expectations of the program. They're showing up every day. They're working their butts off, and they're doing all these things, and they're paying attention to detail, and they're doing all those things. It's just, give yourself some grace. And my assistant coach, Miranda, she's a hugger.
Shout out Miranda. Shout her out. I've met her. She's great.
So when she sees that they're starting to struggle, she won't even say anything. She'll go over to them. She'll give them a hug, and she's like, "You're good. Let's move on." And I think whether it helps them or pisses them off, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but we're trying, right?
It gets them back to center, man. I think that's important. Darin, this has been fantastic, man. This is so long overdue, and just know, and we'll wrap up here. I'll give you a couple flowers moments here, but like, how you've impacted my life, man. You hired me twice. You took a shot on a guy at 22 when, and we can go that whole rabbit hole. I won't. When Chad hired another guy over me, and you guys still took me on. We didn't have the budget. Brought me back around that COVID time, and obviously led me to my beautiful wife to be. I am forever grateful for you, man. And I just want to tell you that outside the wins and losses, you made a big impact on my life, and my fiance still talks about the times, man. So you made a big impact on her too. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that between yourself and Ashton, your family will always have a special place at Rock Valley. You were probably one of the best men's basketball shot clock workers that I've ever seen.
Here we go. We had to get a shout out there. I think if Lave or those guys at the time, or Misty, looked over at me one more time, I was going to get fired. It was a bad connection, but no, I enjoyed it, man. Those are the memories I'll never forget, man. Honestly. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Well, for the Rock Valley community, this is a good one. Run this stuff back. We'll clip it up. And Darin, without, I guess, further ado, man, keep going, man. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me. And, thank you for all that you're doing in the world of sports, not only, obviously in this podcast, but with the NCSA, and there's different avenues to make an impact within the sports realm. And, it's great that you're continuing in that profession.
And I will say this, it's always cool to have someone that's been on ESPN on my podcast. Like, people forget that. So if you haven't checked out that ESPN interview, I got a famous man on the podcast today, and a better than a famous man, a great coach, a molder of young ladies, and just a great person. So I appreciate you, Darin.
Thank you again.
Thank you.